at this Idaho Providers Offering More Great Books. We're going to go ahead and start recording this webinar now so that anyone that was not able to join us or anyone who comes in late can go back and watch the webinar at a later time. And we will post the link to that recording on the Idaho Commission for Libraries website. Hopefully you have all found that and found the presentation slides that are there and the other handouts and resources that are there as well. So let's start off by letting you know who we are. You've met Jeannie Standall. She is our school library consultant here at the Idaho Commission for Libraries. I am Stacy Shaw. I'm a youth services consultant, and the Idaho Commission for Libraries is the state agency that works with all of the public libraries and school libraries in Idaho. So we're kind of like the State Department of Ed is for schools, except we really can't make our libraries do anything. We're just here to support them and their needs. And we are partnering with the Idaho Association for the Education of the Young Child to provide support for this grant. And that is Haley Mychok. Haley, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Haley Mychok. I run a program at Idaho AYC called Ready for Kindergarten. And we had this awesome opportunity come across for us to collaborate and distribute books to you guys. And we're so glad you could be with us tonight.
Okay, thank you. So for the rest of you, we have over 60 people that are supposed to be registered to attend and join us today. So you might see people coming in and out. And if you don't want to see the videos on your screen, you can minimize that at the very top. There's a little black bar, and you should be able to minimize so that all you are seeing are the screens and the checked box. Okay. So let's do a quick overview of the Offering More Great Books grant. This grant was offered to just a few select states in which they wanted to get more books in the hands of kids. It's for providers who are serving low-income children. Each provider that participates in this grant will receive $200 in book credits to spend at the First Book Marketplace site through the First Book National Organization. These can be spent on books for your classroom collection, or you can spend them on books to send home with your children to help build their home libraries. You are going to need to spend all of your book credits by August 1st this summer. And by attending this webinar, you're going to receive one free Idaho Stars credit, which will be great for a lot of your licensing and requirements that you have with your centers each year. We're going to talk more about the logistics and details of the grant a little bit later on. So we're going to start with giving you some background information about why children, especially low-income children, need access to books. And we're going to talk about how certain types of books support the development of critical early literacy skills, what kinds of books would be best to have in your classroom or your center, how to choose high-quality books, what the requirements are of the grant, and how to set up your First Book account if you have not done so yet, and how you receive your Idaho Stars credit for this training. Do we have any questions before we get started? Okay, and you can type questions in the chat box at any time, and we'll try to either answer those as we go along or come back to them at the end. So let's start with kind of the background information here. There have been so many research studies conducted in the past 30 years about how children learn to read. We now know a lot about what children need in order to become proficient readers. And we especially know how important the years before children can enter kindergarten are to reading success. For the purpose of this grant, we're going to focus on just two really critical factors that childcare providers can directly influence and support. And that is that children who have access to a variety of books and are regularly read to in life have significant advantages over those who are not read to. And children who've mastered 6 early literacy skills have an easier time learning to read. If you would like to see more research about how children learn to read and the importance of access to print, as well as how children's brain develop, what are the points about the importance of third grade reading proficiency, and lots more, you can see the American Library Association's Every Child Ready to Read website for a nice cited literature review. And First Readers, and yes, that is actually spelled correctly, F-E-R-S-T, for 50 cited literacy statistics. So if you are writing grants or you just want to see more about the background and the research, please do visit those sites. So the first point we're going to focus on is children's access to books and print materials. So we know that the availability of reading material in the home, whether it is owned and kept at home or borrowed from the library or other sources, is directly associated with children's achievement and reading comprehension. There was a study done in 2010. It was commissioned by Reading is Fundamental to look at a large number of rigorous reading programs that were currently in use. Whether the program was phonics-based or whole language, or whether it was implemented with direct instruction or through other methods, the researchers found that the most important factor in whether a child learned to read from that program was how much direct access to books the child received. So if you think about it, it's hard to get really good at something if you don't practice at home. Picture learning how to play the piano. If you only play when you're at your lesson and you don't have a piano at home on which to practice between the lessons, it will take you a really long time to become a proficient piano player. And it's the same thing with reading and with developing those important skills needed before a child learns to read. They need to have that fingertip access to books in order to practice. However, the playing field's not level when it comes to access to books and other print materials. We know that 61% of low-income children have no books in the home. And many studies over the years have shown that middle-income children have far more books in the home than low-income children. In fact, too many low-income children have absolutely no books in the home, let alone children's books. And Idaho has an inordinate number of children who qualify as low income. This means that many of the children you work with every day have limited access to books. And it seems pretty obvious that children who are learning to read need books in the home. But what about children who are too young to learn to read? Why is access to books so important for those young kiddos? Well, let's go back to our second point. Early literacy skills. Early literacy is what children know about reading and writing before they actually learn to read and write. Children who've developed the skills in the following areas are more successful when they begin reading instruction. These are 6 early literacy skills identified by the American Library Association. You'll find in working with other groups and organizations like the Lee Pesky Learning Center or other kinds of programs that these early literacy skills might be organized in a different way, they might be labeled in a different way, but really we're all talking about the same skills that need to be developed. We're going to talk just a little about each skill, but if you're interested in really delving into how you can support these skills in your classrooms, the Idaho Commission for Libraries offers a free learn. Because of this, each of the 6 skills that I'm about to introduce will include examples of children's books. And I've also gone through the First Book Marketplace website in the last couple days and chosen a few examples of things I know that are in stock currently. Also, for the purpose of this grant, we're going to focus mostly on the 3 skills that are most directly related to that beginning reading process, which are vocabulary development, phonological awareness, and knowledge of letters. So take a look at this sentence. If you don't know what hipple or Roths mean, you don't know what the sentence means. Children can learn to decode words, but not understand what they mean. You can decode the word hipple and you can decode the word Roths, but if you haven't been exposed to those words in your past, you won't understand the whole meaning of the sentence. And to become good readers, children must decode words and interpret their meaning. Knowing the meaning of words is the development of vocabulary, and children with limited vocabulary have a much harder time learning to read. The Hart and Risley study, better known as the 30 million word gap, showed that children from low-income families heard on average 30 million fewer words than children in middle-income or professional families by the time they were 4 years old. Preschoolers from low-income families have typically had fewer home and preschool language experiences, a gap that prevents many from entering school prepared. Research shows that caregivers and parents who read to their preschool children have children with better vocabulary skills, more background knowledge, better expressive and receptive language abilities, and stronger phonological awareness. And we know that children's books contain 50% more rare words than primetime television, and also more rare words than found in children's television programming. By rare words, we're talking about the kind of words not typically used around the home or at the dinner table. Words like enormous or beautiful, not necessarily words like sesquipedalian, which simply means the use of really long words. And we know that reading to children every day is one of the best ways to help develop a child's vocabulary. So again, when we do this workshop as a 3-hour hands-on interactive workshop, we get into how to develop each of these skills in your classroom, activities that you can do. Today, we really are just going to focus on how to choose books that will help develop these skills so that when you go to use your book credits, you will have some good background knowledge. So to help build vocabulary, first of all, any book will help build vocabulary, but books with lots of rare, interesting words are good to look for, and concept books, such as books that show opposites, colors, numbers, counting shapes, all of those kinds of concepts are great to use with kids. Books with lots of describing words. Nonfiction books are great. A lot of teachers and providers tend to shy away from reading nonfiction books out loud because they can be a little bit wordy. However, we really do encourage you to read those nonfiction books aloud, and we're going to talk a little bit more about nonfiction books later. Also, books that talk about a word's other meanings, like homonyms, homophones, the word pair and the word pair, that kind of thing. And poetry books are great because they do tend to use a little more descriptive language. When I went through the First Book Marketplace website, here are just a handful, and there are a lot of books in there, but here are just a few I found that would be great to help develop vocabulary. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time because, again, these slides are all available for you on our website. So all of these points and all of these pictures of the book jackets will be available for the future, and you can print those off and use those to help make your selections. Again, you don't have to choose these books. These are just suggestions, and there are a lot of other choices on the website. So our next skill is phonological awareness. Being able to rhyme, being able to break words apart to hear the smaller parts and sounds, and being able to hear beginning and ending sounds will help kids when it's time to decode or sound out words later on. We know that nursery rhymes are a great indicator of reading success. There have been lots of studies about that. And nursery rhymes are something that a lot of parents don't know these days. So spending some time on those can really be helpful. Phonological awareness is sort of it's the precursor to phonics, and it helps children become playful with words and sounds. So in choosing books to help develop phonological awareness, definitely books with animal sounds where they're doing, moo and oink, books that rhyme, books that allow children to hear the little syllables in words. Children's songs and nursery rhyme books are great to use. And then books with kind of a rhythm or a beat, and books with interesting sounds, buzz, zoom, pop. Those are all great books to be reading to your kids every day. Here's just a few I found on the Marketplace website in the last couple days. I love, love, love Seals on the Bus. It's one of my favorite books to use to help develop phonological awareness. It's a take on the Wheels on the Bus, but it is all about the animal sounds. If you don't know that book, check it out. And our next skill is letter knowledge. We have been showing with our Idaho Reading Indicator, and granted, we do have a new Idaho Reading Indicator that looks at different things, but in the past, for the past 15 years or so, we have been looking at kids coming into kindergarten, and the IRI just looked at how many letters they could identify. And it is a little concerning that we have such a high percentage of our low-income children who can't identify at least 11 letters upon entering kindergarten. And for our kids who come from Spanish-speaking families, that number is almost 75% typically. So we definitely have work to do as a state to come together and help our kiddos be able to have some stronger skills and before they enter kindergarten. Children who can identify letters out of order and both upper and lowercase letters, as well as know some of the sounds letters make, have an easier time learning to read. Yet we know that too many of our low-income Idaho children are entering kindergarten critically below where they should be. Letter knowledge is knowing that letters have names and associated sounds, as well as knowing that some letters can look very similar, as you know. Do not confuse letter knowledge with being able to sing the alphabet song. Children can sing the alphabet song yet still not know their letters or their associated sounds. Children can learn the song, just remember that they also should learn the letters and their sounds and be able to identify them out of order. Introducing children to shapes can also help them with letter identification, because visual discrimination is a necessary skill for use with letters. For example, a lowercase n is very similar to a lowercase h. Let's kind of picture that. Take time to help children see how they're different. Many other letters have very small differences. Look at the lowercase letter D. When you flip it upside down, it becomes the letter B, and then if you flip it horizontally, it becomes a Q and a P. So it's all about the placement of the rectangle to the circle. It's very common for children when they begin to read and write to confuse these letters. However, if we take the time to make them aware of the similarities and differences at an early age, when they begin to read, they'll already have had experience using their visual acuity to decipher the letters and the little nuances. And really, almost any book can help develop this skill. But shape books, alphabet books, and books that help with visual discrimination, like matching or things that are alike and different, will help them start to look for the little differences. Also look for books that have environmental print in the illustrations, where the print is in the background, it's in the pictures, maybe street signs or instructions or things like that. And again, really any book can be used to help with letter knowledge. Here's just a few that I found recently on the Marketplace website. You probably know of quite a few of these. Superhero ABC is one of my favorites, even though it's a little silly, but the boys, especially the preschool boys, really love this book. And of course, Mo Willems is one of our favorite authors, and he has a somewhat newer ABC book as well. Okay, so those next ones we're going to just go through a little bit more quickly. Print awareness is the understanding that print has meaning and it's used for many different purposes. So you want to look for books with speech or thought bubbles, lots of environmental print, books in where the characters are using print in different ways, like they're writing letters to each other, they're making grocery lists, they're actually using the print in their job. Also, books with large punctuation marks or print that changes the emphasis on how a word is spoken, whether it's spoken really loudly or you draw it out. Recipe books are great, and again, any book. It's a great thing to point out when you get ready to read the book, point out the title, run your finger underneath the title, point to the author, talk about the author. Really use your finger to point things out as you're reading aloud. And here's just a few I found. I love Click Clack Moo, How's It Type? Anybody that can find an old typewriter at a garage sale and put that in your dramatic play area, you will change the whole way that dramatic play is done. They love the typewriter, love Scaredy Squirrel and the lists. There's just all kinds of great books out there. Narrative skills are being able to describe things. It's the expressive and verbal part of language, being able to describe things and tell what happened. This skill helps children later understand what they read. Think about it like this. When you first hear or read about a new concept, you kind of get it, but when we can tell or explain it to somebody else, it requires a different level of understanding, and this is when we really get it. So for this skill, we're helping the child take the vocabulary that they've been acquiring and put it into action, verbally. Sharing books that ask questions and gives answers is a great way to improve a child's narrative skills. And using a dialogic reading model is perfect for increasing this skill. If you're not familiar with dialogic reading, I've included a link to a YouTube video of a teacher that's using the dialogic reading model with a group of children in a circle time read aloud. It's only a few minutes, and I would highly recommend you check it out if you're not as familiar with that. When most adults share a book with a preschooler, they read and the child listens. And in dialogic reading, the adult helps the child become the teller of the story. The adult becomes the listener and the questioner, and the audience for the child. And children learn most from books when they are actually involved in talking about and telling that story. And we know that children who've been read to dialogically are substantially ahead of children who have been read to traditionally on tests of language development. So definitely check out that model if you have some time. Here are some books I found recently. Some of these are my favorite books. We are huge Pete the Cat fans in my office, the original Eric Litwin versions. And Blue Sea is a really nice story to retell with flannel pieces. Lots of great choices. And again, these are just a few that I picked. There are lots and lots of choices on that First Book Marketplace website. And the last skill we're going to talk about is print motivation, which is really more of an attitude than a skill. It's all about the enjoyment of reading. And you can do this in your center by making reading a really fun experience and reducing any negative encounters with books. So try to separate the reading experiences from power struggle situations or rewards and punishment. Here's some things that you can do in your center to encourage positive experiences with books and reading. You can let children pick out a story that they want to hear. You can let children read books to each other if you need to be addressing other things like making lunch or talking with a parent. You choose books with diversity in the illustrations or photographs. It's really important for children to see themselves in the pictures, their skin color or their culture, or just even wearing glasses. It's also important when living in a state that maybe doesn't include a lot of diverse cultures like ours, that children are exposed to all kinds of children and families through the stories that they read. And this is a great way to help children alleviate the fear that can come with someone being different than they are. also a great idea to make a comfy area for reading and be sure that children have really easy access to books. Don't keep them up high or turn them into something special. If you're worried, if you have nicer books with book jackets, take those book jackets off if you're concerned with them getting torn. We want books to definitely be something that kids feel are their friends, that they can go in and really pull out and read and use and enjoy without having special permission. And again, here's just a few. Preschoolers especially love any kind of book with underpants. You never can go wrong with underpants. This is one of our, this creepy pair of underwear is the sequel to Creepy Carrots, if you're familiar with that book. There's some really, really great multicultural books on the First Book Marketplace right now too. And if you have never read The Day the Crayons Quit, gotta read that one. I want to talk a little bit about wordless books because again, teachers and providers tend to shy away from these sometimes because they are a little harder to read aloud. But a wordless book can really help the child develop those narrative skills and vocabulary. You can use a lot of that dialogic reading process. These are great if you're working with kids who where English is their second language, because they can tell the story in English or their native language or a little bit of mixture of both. And they're really great for shared reading because kids can sit down with them and they can tell the story together. There weren't quite as many wordless books on the right now, but they do tend to carry them. So kind of look for them as you are flipping through. And let's touch a little bit on nonfiction, especially for preschool. And I know we probably have a lot of, I'm sure that some of you are working with kids who are older than preschool as well, but it's really hard, as you know, to find a good nonfiction book that is aimed at that preschool audience. But they're more and more of them are being published every year. You want to look for nonfiction that has photographs or very detailed illustrations. The books where they have kind of cartoon characters with the nonfiction are not as accurate. They're not as good. So we think a more high quality nonfiction picture book has either those photographs or really nice illustrations in them. And you want to look at the amount of text and make sure that that kind of goes along with the attention span of your age group. You don't have to read all the text in a nonfiction book when you're reading it. You can read the first sentence, or you can ask questions, or you can talk about the pictures. You don't have to sit and read word for word if there is a lot of text in that nonfiction picture book. Picture books with lots of text boxes or bubbles or those little call-outs are great. The simpler the layout, the better for preschool. And kind of consider the topic. We kind of look at it's called the expanding environment approach with kids, where they start with learning about themselves, and then their families, and then their neighborhoods, and the things that they're kind of familiar with. And they kind of go out more and more into more abstract issues. Things like animals and pets and family and landforms and water things are all great. Books, biographies about people from history are not something that preschoolers really understand very well. And there's a lot of biographies out there right now on historical figures. Books about counterterrorism may not be the best choice for preschoolers. So kind of consider the topic. Even books about space, where they're talking about galaxies and things, that's a really hard concept for young children to understand. A book about the moon, where that's probably okay. But getting too abstract is just really hard. However, you always want to take student interest into mind, and if you've got kiddos who love everything about space, then buy books with space, by all means. Dinosaurs, volcanoes. You're all thinking right now, of kids who have things they come in and talk to you about every day that would be good to look for nonfiction. Here's just a few I found. Baby animals. You can't go wrong with baby animals, for sure. Penguins. Sloths. I think sloths are the thing right now. Llamas. Okay, and then for those of you working with babies and toddlers, I want to talk a little bit about board books. Board books really are for babies and toddlers. If you are working with kids that in like a developmental preschool program or that have that developmental need that they can't hold a book and turn the pages as well and they need to have that board book, that's a little different story. But for the most part, board books are for babies and toddlers. And not all board books that are published are appropriate for babies and toddlers. Just so that you understand, if you see a board book version of your favorite picture book that was originally a hardcover or paperback, the board book version is the condensed version. It's not the whole story. They just take pieces and parts. So you are already kind of chopping that story up. And also, board books that are written and illustrated specifically for babies and toddlers are just going to be of higher quality. So books with photographs, simple, clear illustrations, photographs especially. Babies and toddlers love looking at faces of other babies and toddlers. So you want to look for the ones that have more limited text on each page. And you want to talk about the pictures more than, you're not really sitting down to read a board book to a baby. You're really, it's more of an interactive thing. They do have a version of the classic story, The Little House, which is one of my favorite books of all time. But it's not a baby and toddler book, and there's a lot of text on the pages. So you need to be a little bit discerning when choosing board books. So here's, they have a great selection of board books right now on the First Book Marketplace. If you're in that market, lots of good ones there to choose from. Global Babies is one of my favorite books. I use it for lots of different programs. Okay, and the final category that we're going to talk about are the award winners and special lists that books make it onto. So if you're not really sure, if you've not been someone that's chosen a lot of books, sometimes starting with your award winners and things that are making like the notable lists, that's a good place to find one, really good high quality books to begin your classroom collection. So the American Library Association, which is ALA, every year they do the Youth Media Awards. You've probably heard of the Caldecott Medal, maybe some of these others. And then the Children Division of the American Library Association, which is Association for Library Service to Children, always puts out their best lists. Right now they have their summer reading lists, which start at age toddler and go all the way through high school. And so on that website, you can find all kinds of great lists. These are all on the handout that we put up on our website for you. So if you get to that handout and print it out, it'll have this web address for that you can go and you can find these lists. And we also really encourage you to check out the reviews. If there's a book that you're considering and it doesn't have a review, we always reconsider that here at the Library Commission. Unless you know it's going to definitely have kid appeal and it doesn't really matter how high quality it is, because, you know, Sophia is just popular right now and you know they're going to read it. So is Frozen. If you want to go with Olaf, go with Olaf. But you should also try to balance that with ones that you know are definitely high quality. Is Olaf still popular? I don't know. There's going to be Toy Story 4 coming out this fall. Sure, there'll be lots of books associated with that. So a lot of the awards will be put on the jacket covers. So I just kind of put in here some of the ones that are most common. The Caldecott is for outstanding illustrations. The Geisel Award is for outstanding children's literature for beginning readers. Coretta Scott King is your African American portrayals. Pura Belpré is the Latinx community and portrayal of Latinos. And then the Schneider and Seibert ones, I put that in here because there are ones on the First Book Market site right now. Seibert is excellence in nonfiction for children. And Schneider is portraying characters with disabilities or differences like that. So there's a lot on my First Book Marketplace website right now. You can actually sort and filter. I'm going to show you how to do that later to be able to pull up just award winners if you're interested in that. So another place to know about great books that are coming out, I'm going to make a shameless plug for The Bookworm. This is a publication that we publish. It's published new from October to May every year in 3 different age groups. Babies, toddlers, preschool, and kindergarten. You can sign up for that and we just send it to you in your email, or you can go on that website and you can access like 9 years worth of bookworms. So if you're going to do a certain book and you want to have some activities and songs and things to go with that book, there's tons of information there for you. So I do encourage you to check that out. And then here are the resources that we're providing for those of you taking the webinar today. So you can go to libraries.idaho.gov, click on that blog that I did today, and you can download those resources. Okay, so in the interest of time, we are going to go a little bit quicker through here. Again, we just want to emphasize that access to books is super, super critical. Okay, let's talk a little bit about setting up your First Book account. It's not too difficult, but there are some drop-down menus that can be a little bit confusing, and some people are not quite sure which drop-down thing to choose. So there's a great video on their website. You can go to this link. I would watch the video before you try to set up the account. A couple screens that come up. First of all, if you're eligible, yes, you are eligible, and you're going to be a program. Most of you are going to be a program where at least 70% of the children come from low-income families. That's what you're going to pick there. Most of you are for-profit organizations, and then they want you to basically say, okay, if you're serving 70%, what data are you using to come up with that number? And they give you this list. I would use your free and reduced lunch data, if you have your WIC or your ICCP, any of those things will help with that. This one screen is, I think, the screen that gets the most questions. So if you get here and you just don't know what to pick and you're just not sure where to go with that, Haley has offered to help you through that screen. So we put Haley's email address up here, and you can email her and she will tell you how to finish getting signed up there. Okay, so there's just a couple tips I want to go over about the First Book Marketplace website. First, I want you to know that if you place an order that's under $25, you will have to pay shipping, and you'll have to use part of your $200 in book credits to pay that shipping cost. So make sure, if you're going to do your ordering in smaller orders, you're not going to sit down and spend the whole $200 in one place. Make sure that you at least have that minimum $25. Also, a little caveat, they sell single titles, but they also sell cartons of books, and you can get really great deals. Like if you want to send the same book home with every kid, for the summer, and you want to buy 50 copies of one book and send everybody home with the same book, you can do that a lot of times. Just make sure you know if you're buying it in singles or in cartons. And if you're buying in the carton quantities, it does take a little longer for shipping. Usually if you're just buying single titles, you'll get your order within about 2 weeks. If you're ordering those carton quantities, it can sometimes take up to a month, so just kind of keep that in mind. You can also sort and filter on the website, so check that out and play around with it. You can actually, you can look for a certain age range, you can look for award winners, you can look under early literacy, you can look under concept books. there's lots of different ways that you can sort that information so that you're not looking at 2,000 choices when you get in there. You can also, this kind of makes me crazy, but their default is to sort everything. They put 12 items on a page. You can increase that to 12, 24, 48, 96, as many as you want. And then you can also sort it by price. So if you want to look for just books under $5 or something, you can do it that way. So there's just a few other things there to use. And then if you're not sure about a book, you can find the ISBN number and just go to Amazon. Put that in there, pull the book up. A lot of times you can look inside the book on Amazon. You'll have some of the reviews that are there so that you can check that out. And Novelist K8 is a database we provide to you for free through lily.org. And that's a really great reader's advisory tool. It's kind of like Pandora for books. So you'd put in, oh, my kids really like the pigeon books, and you can put it in and it'll come up with books that are like the pigeon books that you can look for. So, and I'm not going to get a ton into that because you have $200 to spend, and I'm sure you want to get going at that. Okay, whoops, sorry about that. Okay, just one more thing. When you click on a book title, go ahead and hit that additional information tab. That will give you what they consider to be their age groups. I take that with a little bit of grain of salt because sometimes I think they're not quite as accurate as they could be, but they're pretty close. So, if you're looking for just preschool or just older kids, you can sort by that age range too. It also tells you how many are left in stock. So if you're down to just a few, you'll want to check your cart before you actually go to pay to make sure it's still there. Okay, the grant timeline and details of the grant. Haley, if you want to jump in at any time, you're welcome to do that. Because this is kind of the whole grant details is really Haley's can of worms here.
So if I leave anything out, let me know, Stacy. So in order to use your $200 in first book credits, you have to sign up for a first book account first. And so that's why Stacy just walked you through that process. And please feel free to email me if you have any questions, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. But in order for, once you have your account set up, then you need to email me your first name, last name, and your email address. And I will send that to First Book. That way they can find you and put your $200 into your account. And then you have, from the time that credits are issued to you until August 1st of this summer, 2019, to spend your $200 credits. And you can do it all at once, or you can make some smaller orders. Just remember, Stacy mentioned that if the order is less than $25, they will charge you shipping. So keep that in mind. And one book credit is equal to $1. So that's nice. It's just flat $200 credits. And you can definitely spend more than $200 because First Book has some amazing books. And I know when I go to purchase them, it's hard to not spend too much. But if you do choose to go over the $200 in credits that you'll be given, then just use your credit card and you can cover the difference yourself. And then after August 1st, if any of you haven't spent your credits, they're going to go back to Idaho AYC and be redistributed a different way. So be sure to use your credits or they will go away on August 1st. So
use them or lose them.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else I missed about that, Stacy?
No, I don't think so. If you are sharing, if you have one center and you have several teachers, you're going to have to figure out your process because we're not going to set up more than one account center, unless you have talked to Haley about that ahead of time. So, you know, it is just that flat $200. Is that correct,
Yeah.
Haley?
Yes, yes. Unless they have talked about it with me before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then Haley, do you want to talk about how they get their STARS credit?
Yes. Yes. Well, as a extra bonus, besides $200 in free books, I mean, what gets better than that? You will get a 1-hour Idaho STARS credit tonight for free. Idaho STARS credits are going to be changing in the future, and it'll all be through RISE. But as of today, I will print off a certificate and mail it to you and enter all of the information for you into the training log so that it says that you attended tonight. And so in order for me to know that you are here, I would love it if you could send me either in the private chat or just send me an email of your name, city, town, and the name of your center. And that way it's like kind of taking roll like we do in class, right? So if you could just send me an email really quick saying that you're here, and then I will use that as the attendance for the class. And that way I know who is here. So, oh, hello. My screen is starting to pop lots of hellos. And if for some reason you're unable to use the chat feature on the phone, or if you're watching this webinar archived and you weren't able to attend the live version, if you go ahead and send me an email and then the subject line "can't wait," I will know you actually watched the whole webinar. So you can get the full credit. So yeah, I think that covers it. But yeah, anyway, after I have a couple days, I'll get you guys a certificate in the mail and get your training information loaded into the system.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And also for the STARS credits, we always just like to remind everyone about the early learning e-guidelines that are available at this link. Those are really great guidelines to show you what kids should be doing and learning at each of the different stages. They have it separated by you know, up to 12 months and then 12 to 36 and 36 to 48. And they're so great because you can go to the literacy domain and click on your age group, and it gives you lots of great activities and things you can do in your classroom to support what we've been talking about today. So if you're not familiar with those, definitely check those out so that you know we do actually have in Idaho a set of guidelines for early childhood professionals to be working on the same sorts of things with our young children. And because I am here from the Library Commission, I always like to remind people that your library is there to support your early learning efforts. So please be sure to visit your local library. A lot of our libraries have special cards for childcare providers, allowing you to check out sometimes unlimited numbers of books. Every library is different. So, you know, using this $200 to get your classroom libraries up and going, or even spending it all just on books for your kids to take home, you still can have a very rich book environment in your classroom by using your local public library. A lot of our libraries have special programs for childcare providers, special story times. Some of them are willing to come to you through outreach. A lot of them have special kits and materials that they check out that might have flannel pieces or ways to retell stories or other really fun early literacy things. They have tons of music CDs. Singing with your kids is a great way to develop phonological awareness. A lot of the libraries have ebooks, not all of them. That's a goal that my office is working on down the road. But there are some really great ebooks and audiobooks too that you can check out. And really developing a relationship with your librarian will allow you that expertise in choosing some high quality books. So, you know, if you have a good relationship or you want to establish one, you go into your library and say, I have $200 to spend on First Book Marketplace. You know, hey, will you help me pick out some things? Most of our librarians would be willing to do that. Now it is right before summer reading, so you might check with them first because they're about to get super, super busy. But I know personally a lot of them would be willing to help you. Okay, and before we take questions, we just want to leave you again with the most successful way to improve the reading achievement of especially our low-income kiddos is to increase that access to print. It is critical that they are spending their days in book-rich environments, and you are the key to that, and we are happy to help you in any way that we can. So, you know, please do utilize Haley. You're welcome to email me and ask me questions. And the Idaho Stars office, I know, has some additional support and ideas for things you can do in your classroom to help support early literacy. So at this point, we'll open this up for questions and find out if any of you have specific, and if you want to unmute, now is a good time to unmute and ask a question, or you can put it in the chat box and we'll be sure to try to get that answered for you.
I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of their evening to join us tonight. This is pretty fun for us to get to give this many free book dollars out. So I'm glad you could be part of it.
Looks like Whitney is saying she loves Baby's First Word and the Jimmy Fallon book for board books. Yeah, I like that one too. That's a pretty fun one. I'm just now looking at the chat. I was not looking at it earlier, so lots of you were weighing in on some of your favorite books. Please do go in, even if you're not ready to set up your account quite yet. Definitely go to the site and start clicking around what the choices are. And remember, there's over 60 of you that are needing to spend $200. So I wouldn't wait too long because you're gonna maybe all be looking for the same titles now that I've shared them with you.
Good point.
So you might want to get on that sooner rather
really
than later.
So fast.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Jeannie and I and Haley will stay on the line for a few minutes in case you think of something. But again, we do want to thank you again for spending an hour with us tonight. We know that there's soccer and baseball and Girl Scouts and lots of things. Just dinner is one. And so we really appreciate you being here with us. We hope that we have helped you to be able to choose high quality books and that you feel more knowledgeable in early literacy skills and knowing how to increase access to print for the kiddos you work with. And I want to thank you for the hard work you do. You guys really deserve medals because I did childcare a long time ago and you guys are the heroes. So good job for all you do. And we're really glad that we can help pay it back a little bit with this $200 in book credits for you. I'm taking the credit, Haley, even though Haley's the one that wrote the grant.
I agree with Stacy. You guys are amazing. You guys are educating our future leaders.
Okay. If there are no more questions, feel free to click in the little box up at the top and close out, and we'll look forward to helping you spend your money.
Thank you, ladies.
We'll stay on for a few minutes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Great
you.
to have that awareness and a good shot in the arm again. So thank you.
Good. Yeah, I should have asked if anybody had taken our 3-hour workshop. I'll bet there are some of you that did.
No, where's that one?
You know, it's really, it's offered usually through the library, and they're kind of regional. If you want to send me your name and email and that you're interested, I can look around and see if there are libraries in your area that might be offering them in the upcoming year and let you know.
Oh, sure. Okay. Shauna Nelson, I'll email it. But
yeah, email me for sure.
The city by register. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
You're saying me. Who's me? Email Haley or
Oh, sorry, Stacy. Yeah, you can't see me.
Stacy?
Email
Okay.
Stacy Shaw, Stacy.Shaw,
Okay.
and my email is on the slide presentation copy.
There it is.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, Jeannie. She's looking out for me.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone else still with us?
Okay. A few people left still.
Okay. They're just trying to figure out where the little X is.
How to close out, yeah. I know, every device is different.
My laptop has been different. Like every time it seems to keep moving.
Yeah, my laptop wouldn't even let me get on tonight, so I had to use my phone.